Hello, okay. I want to first off, before anything else, thank Shauna, our techie person here from Ponderosa Bible Church, and she is being very gracious to give up of her family time to come here and help us out. So anyhow, okay, if you want to stand, do we have a volunteer to give our blessing this evening? Or is it going to be B once again? I see someone coming, maybe, no? All right. Father, we are so grateful for the opportunity to be able to get together on a Tuesday night. And though things are different than they used to be because we're not at Tiny's and we're not enjoying a meal together, but yet, Lord, we are here being updated on many, many issues by our speakers and our candidates, Lord, and we ask you to watch over all of them and all of we that are so supporting them by volunteering to help out their campaigns. Lord, we are especially grateful today that President Trump has sealed a deal with the first two nations in support of normalizing all kinds of economic and social issues with Israel. The United Arab Emirates and Bahrain. And Lord, it was so impressive to watch the whole thing this morning on TV. And Lord, we just ask you, as the other 6 or so nations who are waiting in the wings to also come and join into normalizing that you would watch over and guide our president as he makes these deals. So Lord, watch over us this evening as we deliberate the issues and hear our speakers, watch over all of them. We ask this in Jesus' precious name. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, it has been quite the week in so very many ways. So I want to thank all of you for coming out this evening. And there's just a couple of things. How many of you did watch President Trump this morning? Only one of you? 2 of you? 3 of you? Oh my gosh. And you know what my biggest impression is that apparently in September of 2017, President Trump went to Saudi Arabia and gave a speech and talked about Israel is not your enemy. Israel is not a threat to you guys. The threat is Tehran, Iran. And he said that again today. And all of a sudden, since 2017, these nations have been thinking about what that all really meant. And so it really impressed me, the whole discussion with the guys, because the guy from Bahrain and the guy from the United Arab Emirates were doing Q&A with President Trump with all the media, and they spoke really good English, and they were all smiles. They were happy as could be at this whole event, and so it was really, really neat. And they signed all of the, for each one of them, for Israel, and of course Netanyahu was there too. So those 3 nations each signed 3 times once in English, once in Arabic, and once in Hebrew. So the different translations, so they all got to take them home. And so that was really neat. So air conditioning's working. Okay, so without further ado, because we have 3 speakers tonight, I always forget to announce our dignitaries, and of course, we don't have as many as some days, but we do have Sheriff Adam Shepard in the back. Yay! And you know, he is running against a Democrat, so he's going to be speaking to us. We have Deborah Rose back there. There's Deborah way in the far back. She is a candidate in the runoff for the Payson Town Council. So we're going to be hearing from her also. Any other elected dignitaries here? Not that I see. Okay, so I want to, without further ado, introduce you to Nathan Duell. And Nathan has been here over the years several times. Before that, his predecessor, whose name was Trevor, was coming about once a year. We've had them up to the Tea Party or more. And he is Heritage Action for America. Many of you will recognize that if you're on our action alerts list, I sometimes, besides state bills that we have to look into and support or oppose, he sends us federal bills that are in the hopper and explains why it's a good bill, why it's a bad bill, and to have us connect with, you know, Paul Gosar and Kristen Sinema and Martha McSally in order to oppose or support a bill. So you've seen those come through. Not all the time, because they're ones that are particularly, you know, of interest to rural Arizonans a lot of the time. So anyhow, he's going to tell us tonight about what a sentinel is, like a watchman, and give us an update on everything that Heritage Foundation, do you work for them kind of too, indirectly, and Heritage Action for America is up to. So here is Nathan Duell.
Thank you everyone for having me here tonight. I'm Nathan Duell. I live in the Valley. I'm in North Phoenix, and I've been working for Heritage Action for a little over 4 years now. We do congressional accountability and work with the conservative grassroots to get things accomplished. So tonight I'll talk a little bit about Heritage Foundation and Heritage Action. I'll talk about what we're doing this election season, and then also some ways that you can get involved with us. So to begin, Heritage Foundation, they are the largest conservative think tank. They're located in Washington, D.C., and it was 1973 that they were founded. During the 80s, during the Reagan administration, that's when they rose to prominence and got very involved with his administration. Since there, they've grown, and we work very closely with the Trump administration now. In a bit, I'll show you some of the ways we have influenced the Trump administration in a conservative direction recently. In 2010, Heritage Action was started. That's where I work. We're the political arm. So we work as a 501c4, they're a 501c3. They take the education and they teach about conservatism, they do research. We're the lobbying arm, we're the grassroots, we're the ones doing the political muscle in DC and in the States. So a little bit about the impact. You probably can't read it, that's okay. I'll just let you know a few of the ways that we've had impact. So at the very beginning of the Trump administration in 2017, after he was elected, we put forth the Mandate for Leadership, which is our book of policy recommendations. In President Trump's first year, 64% of our recommendations were implemented. In fact, my old boss at Heritage Action is Russ Vo, and he leads the Office of Management and Budget. So he is in Trump's cabinet, which is very cool to see. Someone who hired me, and now he's in the inner circle working on Trump's budget and doing that sort of work. With immigration, last year in 2019, we did a research polling sort of work, and we impacted President Trump and his administration with the public charge rule. This was the administrative action that made it where if There is someone who becomes a citizen. They're only able to become a citizen if they can prove that they're not going to be a public charge, meaning they will end up on welfare or taking advantage in some other way. So it made more strict requirements for becoming a citizen when someone has been here as a legal resident and they may or may not be able to be someone who's a productive member of society, and make sure that it's the best people becoming citizens in America. For pro-life, we helped with the Title X rule, which restricts certain monies from going to Planned Parenthood. It made it where Planned Parenthood is now not even seeking money from that program, and instead they're just relying on donors because they don't want to comply with the new rules, which say that they would have to refer people to pro-life pregnancy centers as well, and not just abortion mills. Then one other one is free speech on college campuses. Heritage helped craft state legislation, and in Arizona and a few other states it passed last year, and this protects free speech on college campuses. If these colleges try not to have free speech, then there's actions in place for those who are trying to hinder the free speech to have certain discipline. So those are a few ways that we've had impact over the last year. And now the Sentinel program, that's how you get involved with us. There are half sheets all around, so if you're interested in becoming a Sentinel, just fill that out. The Sentinel program is how you hear from us and take action. It's our email list, and we also do a Monday strategy call every Monday at 2:30 Mountain Standard Time. On this call, we talk about what's happening in Washington, D.C. We give you the ins and outs. We talk about what Republican leadership is saying, what the Democrats are saying, and then what the conservative direction is on a bill. Sometimes it doesn't align with what Republican leadership is saying, so that's why we want to make sure you are equipped to be the constitutional conservative activist. There's a picture of our Facebook page. We have a hidden group, so if you become a Sentinel, we can approve you to that. You can also watch the call on the Facebook live stream on Mondays or throughout the week. And this is a little hard to see, but on our website, heritageaction.com, for all these major issues, we have toolkits. If you click on the toolkit, it will give you an issue brief. It'll give you a message for your member of Congress. For Paul Gosar, it's going to be encouraging him to continue to fight the good fight. For someone like Senator Sinema, it's probably going to be directed at correcting her, because a lot of what she's doing is not conservative. No surprise there. Legislative update, I'll go over this very briefly because there's good stuff I want to cover for the election. With the legislative update, since it's an election year, there's only a few more bills that are going to go through Congress and have a vote until the election. Right now, Democrats are doing something called messaging bills. Two of these, one is Strengthen Diversity Act, the other is along the same lines with equity. The Democrats are putting forth far left bills so that their House Democrats can vote, go back to their district and say, look what I'm trying to accomplish for you. Now these are not going to pass, but it shows when there are real problems in the US and the Democrats are just trying to do messaging, that's where they are. They don't really care about the American people with what they're doing in the House. They just want to get reelected. No surprise. Coronavirus funding, it's at a standstill. If you've been following the negotiations, President Trump's team is standing strong and they're not budging. Pelosi, she wants significantly more money and liberal policy riders. So right now it's not looking like a deal is going to happen anytime soon unless one side caves. And then finally, with government funding, we're going to run out of funding by September 30th. So Congress will have to come up with a short-term CR, which basically punts the funding down the road. They'll fund the government for a few months and then hit town so they can go campaign. And we are a conservative organization. We are against overspending. Congress does not have an appetite right now. President Trump has said that if he gets reelected, that's going to be a priority. So we're going to need conservatives all across America to hold our Republican leadership to that if they do win the election. Now for the fun stuff. Our big campaign at Heritage Action is called Fight for America. It's been running the last few months and it will run through the election. This right here is a billboard. It went up in 3 different cities. It went up in New York City, Atlanta, Georgia, and Dallas, Texas a few days ago. The one in New York City is in Times Square, and it's multiple stories high. So it's something that's definitely going to be provocative, and if you're a patriotic American, this is not offensive to you, but if you're part of that minority that's in the far left of ideology and you consider yourself a Marxist, this might be offensive to you. And so we're also having bets within the office about the one in Georgia. It's right across from the CNN headquarters, so we're getting bets on when it's going to get burned down. We know that people are going to go after it. But it directs to our police pledge, which is one of the big things we've been doing. The overview of Fight for America: we want to energize conservative voters and the grassroots. We want to bolster community support for the police, something that a few years ago no one would think was controversial, but now apparently you have to say that you support law enforcement. It's ridiculous what's happening in American society right now. We're calling for accountability in the education system because there is some horrific things being taught in public schools, and then reinforcing that you have to vote for America. That's how you fight for America as well. The police pledge, it's a little hard to read, but there are copies in the back. So far we have, this is as of this morning, it's over 110,000 citizens right now. We have 18 senators or Senate candidates in the House for Arizona. So far we've had Congressman Gosar, Biggs, and Lesko all sign. So we're just working on Schweikert and McSally. There's also a handful of Arizona legislators and candidates. I know Ms. Brenda Barton, she already signed the pledge, which is great to see. In the pledge, it just says that you are for law enforcement and you are against defunding the police. I have copies in the back, so if there's any elected officials you know or candidates, take them the pledge. All they have to do is sign it and email it back to us, and we will put up their name on our website. And yeah, it's a growing number. We're encouraged to see it, and we know that if it gets big enough, it's going to be very easy to point to who is pro-police and who's not in a race. I think there's one Democrat who signed on for a local race. Other than that, everyone else has been a Republican. No congressional Democrats have signed on. Just shows where their party is at. And back here, these are some of our materials. I only had 10 yard signs left. I brought them. They're in the back. They say Fight for America, back to blue. Feel free to take them. I don't want to bring them back to Phoenix with me, so I hope all 10 are taken. And then our favorite product that we've been using for door knocking this cycle is this door hanger on the left. It says, will you vote, or which values will you vote for? One side, it has Black Lives Matter, the organization and everything they stand for. And then the other side is America. I dropped 500 of those there in the back. Please take some, and then Shirley will be taking the rest to the party headquarters, and that way they can get incorporated. And there was a legislator in Phoenix. She's an LD20, and she said that this is the best product she's seen this cycle for door knocking. If you're interested in getting more, just reach out to me. I will get them printed. I will get them to you. We just want them in the hands of voters so that they can see clearly that the Black Lives Matter organization is anti-America. They're not just saying we think Black Lives Matter. They're saying they want to overthrow American society as we know it. They are pro-socialism. 3 of the founders are Marxists. I'll go over that in a little bit. So I just have a few more minutes, but we've also been doing door knocking in a few states. Over 100,000 voters have been contacted in 4 of the swing states: Iowa, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and North Carolina. We also did some polling, and this isn't going to be a surprise, but 79% of swing voters say that they oppose defunding the police, 69% strongly oppose defunding the police, and 62% believe that we should not rethink policing. Arizona was one of those 3 swing states. We know this is a winning message. And then I believe I just have a few more minutes. Critical race theory. I won't go into all the details on this, but it's the underpinning ideology behind the Black Lives Matter movement. It's a belief that argues that you can not look at people as individuals, but rather deconstruct how they are and how they fit into society. So if someone is a minority, then they are oppressed. If someone is not cisgender, the word that they made up for being straight, they are oppressed. and you can break down all of society based on something called intersectionality, which is how these character traits fit in. And from there, you can determine whether someone is an oppressor or oppressed. It's no longer about individuals. And that's a theory that's behind the Black Lives Matter organization. They're having this record influx of cash. They have done such a good job messaging to the people, just to average Americans who do not understand everything they're standing for. All you have to do is go to their website, the Black Lives Matter organization. There's a few of them, and they say that they call themselves comrades. They want to get rid of the nuclear family. They want to restructure the tax code in a way that allows for redistribution of wealth. They're queer affirming. They have all these different things that everyday Americans, conservatives, and Christians would be opposed to. But people are being duped into their one phrase, Black Lives Matter, and promoting an ideology that they don't agree with. So that's one thing that we're doing to educate with Black Lives Matter. Another part of that is the 1619 Project. This is the education component of where we're trying to make a difference at Heritage Action. The 1619 Project, it was a New York Times work of journalism that was being sold as a piece of history, as historical writing. The person who created it, Nicole Hannah-Jones, she has now been called out for her revisionist history being wrong. So now she is claiming that it was just a work of journalism. But she started a curriculum, and the central theme to this is that the American Revolution was started to preserve slavery. It's so far from accurate. Slavery was going on all over the earth. It was going on in England, where we got our independence from. So there's no truth to it, but she has turned this into a curriculum, and it's being infiltrated into schools, lots of public schools all across the country. One thing we're doing at Heritage Action to try and get rid of this is right now we're collecting information on textbooks. So if you have grandchildren, children, you know someone of that age, and you can get access to their textbooks, all we need to know is who the publishers are, what year it was published, a picture of the cover, and we're sending it to our research team at Heritage Foundation, and they're working to uncover all this terrible stuff. Also, comprehensive sex education. That's the other area that there's been terrible stuff going on in the schools. In California, it's horrific. If you've seen some of the pictures that they are putting in the textbooks, that's what we're fighting up against. The left wants to completely overturn America, and they're going about it through both history and sexual education. So that's all I have for you today. If you want to get involved and you want yard signs, or you want to be a sentinel or door hangers, I have the half light sheets. Just fill that out and get it to me. And I'll also be sticking around so that you can talk to me after the meeting. Thank you.
This other one. Okay, does anybody have a question for Nathan?
Yes.
Okay, here we go.
Oh, I don't think I need that really.
Yes, you do. We have hard of hearing people here. Hi.
I'm just wondering, and you may have said this before I slipped in, but the slides that you used, will we have access to them on a web page? Do you have printouts of them?
Shoot me an email and I can send you the slides.
Okay, because the Black Lives Matter and the, what was it, CLS?
The critical race theory.
That was really succinct and really well written. I haven't read anything like that. That was just to the point.
Yeah, and then also on the back table, I have the 500 door hangers, and that has the side-by-side of American values versus Black Lives Matter. So also take some of those.
Thank you.
Other questions? Okay. Well, if you could email me that PowerPoint, I would appreciate it too. Okay. Alrighty, so you'll be sticking around a little bit after me? Okay, great. Okay, so Adam, come on up. Adam Shepard is our current Gila County Sheriff, and he's been at it for 4 years, and he is running again for another 4-year term. And he has a competitor that's a Democrat. So we'll see. I doubt it, but you know.
Well, thank you, Shirley, and thanks for the vote of confidence. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming out. I don't mess with my note too much, or I'll get off track, and then you guys will have to hear me blabber on for hours, and we don't want any of that. We want to try to keep me on track. As Shirley said, thank you for the introduction. My name is Adam Shepard. I have been your sheriff for the last 2 terms. Yeah, 2012, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. And, we've been through so much together, you tend to forget things after a while. And I am running for the 3rd term for the office. It's my 35th year with the sheriff's office. So I would like to, if you're not convinced, I would like to get an opportunity to talk to you about that, to let you know where I stand on things, and we'll talk about a few of those things tonight. The problem with picking some topics to come in front of a group to talk about is it might be something that's important to me or somebody I talked to today. It might not be important to you. So I encourage you to think of some questions that you might want to ask me at the end. We'll definitely take the time for that. And if, again, I will also be staying over after the meeting if you would like to get on a one-by-one chat. Now, somebody that I almost always forget because I get so wrapped up in what I'm going to say to everybody is my team. Well, there she is back there. When I get contacted, Jessica's my wife, when I get contacted by the paper or some political deal or something like that, they always say, well, would you have your campaign folks get a hold of us? And I'll say, okay, what campaign folks are you talking about? This isn't a national campaign. They don't have a lot of money. They don't have a headquarters and any of that stuff. Headquarters is home. My campaign staff is right there. As a matter of fact, she's taking notes for the paper. And so there you go. Appreciate that. I want to start off before we get too many of the meat of the matter about thanking all of you for your support in the primary. We did really, really well. We were over 50, I think, 53%, something like that, over the other candidates. It seemed like everybody woke up this year deciding they were going to run for sheriff. So on my ticket. So I appreciate your support during that. It's been a tough year, especially with the COVID thing and not being able to campaign like we normally would. I really didn't know how things were going to turn out until right after the primary was over. So I appreciate your support in that. And it just shows that no matter what the garbage they're spewing about me is, you still believe in me, and I hope to live up to that. So that's one of the things. One other thing that I think, and we kind of, I was kind of started off by the previous presenter. I was going to talk a little bit about peaceful demonstration. I want to ask you everybody a question real quick. If you were up in a group of people and you knew that something was going on, there was some kind of a disturbance or something like that, and you walked up to somebody and one of them had a brick in their hand and one of them was supposedly peaceful demonstrating, how would you handle that situation? Well, there are leaders in this country that are expecting our police officers to do that every single time something like this goes on. How in the world do you know that? And how in the world do you know that the person standing next to the brick thrower or the Molotov cocktail guy or whatever is not going to jump right in on it after you try and deal with that situation? I ask you to put yourself in that situation, because the police officers is just us. It's our sons, it's our daughters, it's our fathers, it's our brothers. It's not, there's not this separate cadre of people out there that are trained to be cops from day one, and they know all these magical things. We put them through a 6-month training program, the best we can do, and we put them out there among things like this, and then their leadership, in some cases, thank God not here, expect them to try and differentiate between those two. I just don't understand it. I don't know if you knew this or not. I read this today. It didn't really shock me all that much, but it kind of goes along with what we're trying to do here with Back the Blue. Did you know that the sheriffs surrounding Portland were asked to come in and help with those demonstrations, peaceful demonstrations? You know that? What do you think they told them? You do know, don't you? They told them no. And I think Now, I'm the type of person, if a cop needs a help, if an agency needs a help, if another jurisdiction needs help, we're on the road getting that help there. So the only thing I can think of, if they have seen, what is it, over 90 days now, almost 100 days, something like that. I don't follow it that close, but I know my little brother lives up there, so we're on the phone conversing about it a lot. So they've probably sat back and seen this and say, oh, now, after 3 months you asked me for some help, huh? How come you just didn't go in there in the first place and deal with it like, you should have, and you wouldn't be having to ask for our help right now. And I think that might be, and I haven't talked to any of them. I see them at conferences and stuff. We actually have a whole Western conference for the sheriffs. So I'll probably make this a point to talk to them if I get a chance to go to the next conference. But another thing they probably have been watching up there is this leadership not backing the police, right? And blaming the police on what's going on instead of the people that are actually doing it. Would you want to run in and help on a situation like that, where you're not going to be appreciated if you help in something like that? You're probably going to be criticized. So, thank heaven. Let's look at our demonstration, if you want to call it that. I was talking to Brad before the meeting about our demonstration that happened here in Payson. I did come by. Of course, I know a lot of the folks that were in the crowd. Shook a few hands and see what's going on. I didn't even realize that there were protesters there, folks. I really did not. All I seen was, a line of 40, 50 people there in front of Bash's, and I see a couple of kids that I found out later were the protesters behind that crowd over next to the police officers, and a whole lot of folks in the parking lot kind of trying to watch what was going on. So I think, they know what's going to happen on something like that when they leave the big city, when they leave those liberal, conclaves that want to blame them for everything, and that want to blame the police officers for trying to keep some kind of order and something like that. It's a whole different story when you leave that particular deal. I think if folks, like the folks that were out there defending the town, had felt that they would have had that kind of backup in the big cities, all that would be gone by now too, but they probably don't feel like they would get backed up in a situation like that. Ours was a non-event. I think it finally ended up being, 9 people total or somebody, I think what they said in the paper. So I think a majority of Americans in this country feel that way, but it's almost like you just write off the cities and those folks that won't, leaders that won't back the people that are trying to keep it, safe and orderly. So I don't know, we've got to see where that's going to go. Next thing I'd like to talk to you about briefly is, and I took a lot of heat for this one, right? About a lot, some, but I want you to understand my reasoning for this. So when we started doing the masks and we started doing the supposedly closing the businesses that did not comply with whatever, some kind of list of rules. My guys come to me, and I tell you, they were very concerned about it. And they said, Sheriff, are you going to make us go out there and arrest people or give people problems for not wearing a mask? They also said, Sheriff, are you going to make us go to a business? Somebody, that's all they've got between them and poverty, right? Because they've put their whole life, they've put their whole fortune, they put everything that they've got into that business. Are you going to make us go down there and close those people down? Absolutely not. I'm not going to do that. And it's not that I have a disregard for people's safety. Every single time we have covered this issue, whether it be on a Facebook page or in public, like in something like this, I always say, you're responsible for your own safety. Okay, it's very clear. If you, if you shouldn't be out among people, then and you feel that way, you shouldn't be out. If you feel like you need to wear a mask and that people around you need to wear, absolutely, by all means, we support those issues. However, I do not think that law enforcement should be the ones that have been put supposedly You know, every time the governor talks about it, he throws law enforcement under the bus for enforcing something like that. Let me tell you why. When you become a police officer, is there anybody in here, by the way, that has been a police officer or has a family of police officer? Yeah, a few of you. So they're out there. When that officer begins their training, what do you think from the very get-go they're taught? What kind of things do you think they're taught?
The oath.
What?
The oath.
The oath, absolutely. And what about the founding documents of the country? Exactly. Okay. So from day one, when you're training in the police academy, we have got you studying this stuff, taking quizzes on it, taking tests, and we are saying to you, don't you ever, because you're going to get everybody in trouble, violate not only that oath, but those tenets that's been laid down for our freedom. Don't violate it. Okay. So here we are. You graduate with that. You've had to be tested on it. You've had to prove your knowledge in it. And you get out on the road, and you get into your online training. I mean, your on-the-job training. And that's reinforced even more. And if you get bumped up a little bit close to violating somebody's rights, you get in trouble, right? You give you a little slap or whatever's appropriate for whatever you did. Because those are the things that we're supposed to be upholding. Okay? So now you come along and say, well, we've had this situation that we've never had before, and we want you to go out and go completely against what you've been trained from day one. All right? And we want you to enforce this stuff on the people that you're there to protect, the people that you're supposed to be protecting their rights. Now, does that make any sense to anybody? Does it make sense to you? If you've been taught your entire career, your entire training program, and everything about you is to first think about those things. If you're confronting a mass murderer, they are taught to think about their civil rights first and not to violate those at any point during their interaction with that person. And that's the way they should be contacting every single citizen in this country. Now, does that start us down a rabbit hole? I don't know. I think it's a dangerous place to go. If there was some kind of a need, demonstrable need for that, it probably should not have been fallen to law enforcement in any way whatsoever to do that. Okay, that was my contention from the beginning. I still believe that. Those are my reasons for believing that. We hold these truths to be self-evident, right? That all men are created equal and endowed. What? Endowed? The way they wrote this, I love the words they used. By their Creator, with certain inalienable rights. And among them are what? Life, liberty, and happiness. Now, I come up to you on the street, you're not wearing a mask, and I arrest you or do something to you. Does that fit into that? Doesn't seem to fit into it to me. All of the things that was written, that's the Declaration, of course, everything that was written under the Constitution to support the Declaration, to support your freedom. Does any of that stuff fit with some kind of an action like that? Does that fit with closing down your business because you don't meet certain criteria? Doesn't seem to do it to me. That was my reasoning for doing that. I did take some heat on it. Unfortunately, one of the feedback that I got on it was, I wish the sheriff would just shut up and do the job that his boss, the governor, has told him to do. Yep. In case that's news to you, the governor does not have anything to do with the sheriff. He is an elected official, state of Arizona. I am an elected official in the county, but it's considered, it was set up by the state constitution, right, just like the governor's office was. So he doesn't have any power over me, I don't have any power over him. So unfortunately, that was a misconception there, and I'm sorry for that. That person didn't need to be educated. I didn't get a chance to, unfortunately. But I don't work for the governor. I don't work for the Board of Supervisors. I don't work for any other elected official. Who do I work for? People. The only law enforcement position in this country that you vote the person in is this one. Everybody else is appointed by some kind of a functionary, another elected official, or something to that effect. So I don't have any I do have bosses. In Gila County, I have about 55,000 bosses. And, you know, the sheriff of Maricopa County, he's got about, 6 million bosses, and so forth and so on. That's your boss. And they make that decision as to whether or not to keep you or to punish you for whatever they think might have done wrong every 4 years, right? And that's what we got coming up.
Do you have a board of advisors or anything?
There is not in the state of Arizona. Sheriffs are autonomous. That's how come you choose carefully. Because now, of course, there's always a recall process if somebody is really in bad shape or something like that. I mean, one got started on me, and I think there was 5 people that signed on to it, so obviously that wasn't going to happen. Somebody didn't like me, but or maybe didn't like the fact that I tell it like it is. When I came 8 years ago, I asked for the job, and I told you I was going to do 3 things. I was going to standardize and professionalize the agency. Having been there for as long as I had, over 27 years, I knew what worked good, what didn't work good. I knew what we needed to modernize, what we needed to bring up to speed, to have a modern police force, and I've been working on that ever since. Sometimes you hear candidates say, I'm gonna. It's amazing to me. I told you that the supervisors are not my bosses, and they don't boss me around. But what, do you know one thing that they do have a lot of sway over, or the only sway over in the county? That's exactly right, the budget. So when you hear a candidate that's not a board of supervisors say, I'm gonna, if that has anything to do with money, you got to go in there and convince that board of supervisors that's something you need to spend their money on. You don't just get a big pot of money at the beginning of the year, you spend it on anything you want to. It doesn't work that way. Every single dime that comes through the county coffers and down to the elected officials is cataloged, there's a finance department. You can get any information through a Freedom of Information Act request on any part of that funds that you want to, that you're interested in. There can't be, counties have to run a couple of different ways. They have to run completely wide open so you can get that information anytime you want it. And they have to run a balanced budget, right? If they don't, then they're in trouble with the state. And of course, you know that there was some previous folks before our current set of supervisors that kind of messed things up, but they're finally getting it all straightened back out, finally, after this many years. So anyway, if you listen to the opponents, of course, you know, everything's screwed up, and the sheriff's office probably implode if you put me in office for another 4 years. We're doing pretty good. You know, we fight with all of the other surrounding agencies for officers. We got a good group. I look for folks that want to serve the community as a community member, because those folks are the ones that will be true to you in the long run, that want to live here, that want to raise a family here. That's what I did. That's what my wife did. That's why I didn't want to be anywhere else. I didn't want to go anywhere else. And I didn't worry so much about the pay, because it can be a little bit challenging to try to deal with the East Valleys and things like that. We got a lot of money down there. But we hold our own. We're doing our best. We're trying to get good people that are out there, keeping the sheriff's office going, and that's what I'm going to continue to do if you put me in office for another 4 years. I'm not making any promises. I'm running on the same things that I ran on 8 years ago, because it takes time to get things done that you want to do. And it takes time to get the folks that are involved convinced that what you're trying to do is going to benefit the citizens of the county. That's what I'll continue to do. I'm not going to be changing. And I think back when I walked into that group that we talked about earlier, how am I doing on time? Usually, Shirley's yelling at me. We're getting up there. I want to definitely give you a chance for some questions. But when I walked up to that crowd the day that the protest was supposed to be in Payson, it brought back something that I learned in the academy, and that was, I don't know, anybody ever heard of Sir Robert Peel before? I'm sorry, Peel. He's considered. How come you know all these answers?
Just poured out.
Well, could I just sit in the audience next time and have you give the lecture for me?
Isn't he the guy that started the police force in
Thank you. I'm telling you what. Wow. So this is, when you're going through history of law enforcement portion of the academy, you learn that Sir Robert Peel was considered the father of modern policing. He was the one that organized police into what we kind of know it as today, into a uniformed service, into having the correct amount of training, being recognized in the community and things like that. One of the things that he said, and it really drove it home, that little experience over there at Bash's, was that, and I'm trying to read it from my thing because I don't want to miss it. The police are the community, and the community are the police. Now, this is the person that formed modern law enforcement, that we look up to and say, everything that we have now from law enforcement came from him. And that's what he said, okay? So he understood the importance of having the community behind you, having the community understand their role in law enforcement, and their support for the police. So I really want to thank you for bringing that message today. I love your signs. I'd love to have one. I think I'll take one home if you don't mind. And if they go, I'll just ask you for another one. But anyway, okay, so I am asking for your support again in November. November 3rd is coming up pretty quick. I think we're, a month and a half off or something like that. So yeah, we're just a couple weeks away from our early balloting. So, and I think, just kind of like the last one, most people are probably going to do the early balloting because you don't want to, get exposed. So fill it out and bring it in. Hope you got all that done. Remember, there's still time to get registered. There's still time to get, I think there's still time to get a mail-in ballot, right?
Yes.
Okay, but you can't pass the deadline, and it's the first week of October. October 5th. My friend Shirley says, because she's always up on these things, www.voteadamshepard.com. My crew, my campaign crew back in the back has got my hand cards, got my my qualifications and all that stuff like that. She's holding up the bumper stickers if you'd like to have one, and I just have business cards back there if you don't want to take home a poem card. But and I did not bring signs because if you would like to have a sign in your yard, use one of those ways of getting a hold of me, and I'll just get your address from me, either drop it off, or I would even be more than happy to put it up for you if you would like. And my website there that I just mentioned, www.voteadamshepard.com. Spelling is important. That's why I brought the materials, because there's a lot of different ways to spell Shepherd, and none of them will get there except for the right one. And you can request a sign on there, you can donate, you can leave me your information and stuff like that, or you simply can just call me. That phone number that's on that materials is the phone that I'm carrying right here. So, if you're on Facebook, I don't do a lot of Facebooking. So I apologize to you if you went to the Facebook page looking for a lot of, things back and forth and stuff like that. Social media is a dangerous place for somebody like me to be on, because as many of us know, you can post something and half people are going to love it, half people are going to hate it. So I don't usually do things through my own personal Facebook page. We do have a Facebook page that I hope you follow from the Sheriff's Office that keeps you up to date on all kinds of local stuff. We have all of our daily releases there. We have, for big events, we have our press releases, and we put those on there. And then, of course, if you have a smartphone, you can download our branded app. All you got to do is search for Ely County Sheriff's Office, wherever you get an app for that phone, And there's all kinds of information on that, ways to contact us, and that's where we post our daily mugshots from our arrests. Every single one of them goes on there. But anyway, back to me. 928-595-2860 is my number. Like I said, it's the phone I'm carrying right here. I'm not scared to give out my phone number. What is anybody going to do to me over the phone? And most of the time, I'm usually busy on something, so I have to let it go to voicemail anyway. I will contact you back, and we can have any kind of a discussion that you would want. There's nothing that's off limits that I've been involved in. So, we ready for questions?
Sure.
All right, Shirley's going to be taking our
Is that question, Janelle?
Oh, hi, Janelle. How are you?
Okay, we have another dignitary in the group, Janelle.
Yes, we do.
Our current town councilor.
Okay, thank you. And I
Hi.
appreciate you being here. How you doing? Okay, so again, we the people, so want to hold you accountable just to make sure, again, because you're running up against something else. So I'm going to ask you really great questions.
Great.
So number one, is the Sheriff's Department fully staffed?
Sheriff Department has only been fully staffed one time since I've been here.
Okay.
Remember that it takes, let me explain a little bit. It takes a short period of time for somebody to decide they either don't want to be a police officer anymore, or they want to move to another jurisdiction, or they want to get someplace that pays better. Okay? Well, it takes them a few minutes to make that decision. You know how long it takes for me to replace that position? 6 months. I would love for it to take 6 months. Usually we get the testing done and the preliminary things done in 6 months. It usually takes anywhere from 1.5 years to 2 years to take somebody all the way up from untrained to get them to where, and they've gone through all of the training, all of the on-the-job training, and everything that they have to be out on the street by themselves and be able to take a call. It takes that long. So that's how come you almost never, even large agencies that pay a lot of money, rarely ever have their complete staffing up all the time, because that's what it takes. It takes time. It takes a lot more time to put somebody in there that's effective than it did for somebody to decide that they want to have a job someplace else. Yes, ma'am?
Okay, so going on it though, how many officers do you currently have and how many or would you be fully staffed? Okay, can you please give us numbers?
Okay, numbers are, so our contingent, or what we're allowed by the Board of Supervisors, is 50. We're currently 6 down. 2 of them are in the academy. So that means we get for 6 months, they're gone. They're completely gone away from the office. They're not giving any input whatsoever. They are at a training academy someplace. And in our case, 90% of the time we use Maricopa County Sheriff's Office, simply because they're kind of statewide, well-known for their training program. And when we get them out, see, if we send them to a training program that also trains like street cops and DPS and all that other stuff, they really don't have the sheriff mentality, which is kind of unique among law enforcement. But when they come out of that Maricopa County Sheriff's Academy, they do, and they have all the skills that they need. Our folks coming from that academy do a lot better. So, what was the rest of it?
Okay, so I have 3 kind of different questions, but
Okay.
keep going on this one to a degree. Where are you guys looking for? Because that's something that you guys should be looking for, especially if you have people that retire. And if you know they're going to retire in a year, that means then by a year you guys should automatically, because it's everywhere. You should be looking. But where are you guys searching for, not just waiting for people to walk in? Where are you guys also looking for?
It runs on our Facebook all the time if you follow that. It runs, so thank you for that. It's social, like events. We're always at the rodeo, but there haven't been really too many other events this year to be advertising at. We advertise at colleges. As a matter of fact, some of the colleges in the valley have what they call walk-on academies. And if have anybody ever heard that term before? Have you heard it? Okay, what does it mean?
Well, I want to go back to what you were talking about a few minutes ago.
Okay.
So you were talking about the dedication that an officer has to have when he goes through the academy.
Right.
And I just want to say that I think the average adult parent
they don't.
I have watched 2 of my 3 sons go through the police academy. And let me tell you, it's a lot of work. It takes a lot of dedication. And for me, as their mother, I watched them, and sometimes I was sorry they were doing it. I was proud of them. I'm still very proud of them.
Me too.
But that was part of me watching them go through it. I don't know how to explain what I'm trying to say.
It's tough for a parent. It's tough for a parent. It's kind of like when they go off and join the military too. You know, because it's a lot of unknowns in that, and you know it's not a safe job, and you know it's dangerous, and you just hope that they're listening.
The two boys.
Adam, could you read back a little bit of what you said?
Sure.
Was in the Air Force.
No,
He said that the police academy was harder than base camp.
Well, I don't know if everybody in the military would agree to that or not, but
But he and his wife both went through the Air Force. He and his wife both went through the Air Force Academy at this base training at the same time. So they worked off one another. But then she had to watch him go through the police academy, and her feelings was very much the same as mine. Huh?
it's almost like, you know, they're being trained for something that's going to be so dangerous it could get them killed. So it's hard for parents to go through that, and I completely understand it. Another thing that's really, really hard on is families, of course. We have matter of fact, we have a gal in the county right now. She caught COVID, so of course she had to take the time off to isolate. But they had started the academies this year. Thank God they thought ahead, and they staggered the academies to where if you did get pulled out for COVID for whatever reason, you could actually pick up the next academy that was coming along behind you at the same place you left the last one once you were out of the quarantine. Thank goodness we did not lose her, because man, we can't handle that. But I know that when she came home after she went back to the academy for a few weeks, the husband had packed everything up and left, unfortunately. So hard on families. It's hard on parents. It's hard on everything. It takes a lot of dedication to be that person. And why, you know, society, or some in society, I'm not saying all, obviously it's not even the majority, I don't think. I think you're right. It's a minority, you know, would drag them through the mud after that kind of dedication. It just blows my mind. But anyway, are we done, Janelle? Are we going on? Okay, keep on rocking.
We're going. Okay, so the next one I have is regarding, let's see, the narcotics task force. Where are we
Yes.
at with that? How many do we have staffed on that for the whole county?
Well, let me make sure and clarify you understand that we get money, a pass-through grant from the state to hire those positions, okay? When I was on it, and I was on that force in the 90s, we had enough money to fund 7 full-time people, a commander, a sergeant, and all of the equipment we would need, plus a place to work out of. Okay, that, so you can kind of guess in your mind what kind of funding we're talking about. And that was while the idea of let's try to combat these drugs on our streets was the big thing, right? And that's what everybody talked about. As with most programs like that, the money dwindles. Okay, dwindle, to where now it only funds us a couple of positions. Right now, we have an agent, some of you may know, Kurzakowski, the local one, I know you do. And that's our local guy here in Payson. And then our commander out of Globe, who runs the whole show. And we also offer grants to other agencies if they would take somebody and give them to us for a certain period of time to reinforce that group. Unfortunately, if we can't fund the whole year, which normally we can't because we don't get enough money to do that, they won't commit their person for the 6 months or whatever that we can pay for. So we still use other agencies, we still take other officers when we have a large event that's going on, but as far as full-time people that are out there working it every day, it's dwindled down to just a few people.
Yeah, because I knew at one point you at least had 6, give or take.
Yes.
Yeah, a couple years ago.
Well, we also supplemented them from patrol.
But going on that, hideout, right?
Right.
Again, I would like to know, because I know I've been discussing with you since 2017.
We've had several.
Yeah, but I still kind of would like to know why it really hasn't been addressed in petition, because I even talked to our new chief too and mentioned to him, we still haven't had anybody petition to go in there. And I've talked to Sally down
You need to be a member of
to
HIDA.
be a member of HIDA, and I've already talked to Sally, and I talk to Sally quite often
Yeah.
down there, and she's like, you guys just have to do it. And it seems like we're not getting nobody to petition, so.
Okay, well, we did at one time. and-
Yeah, but that was about like, I know.
It was
It's been
years
years
ago.
ago, but we haven't done it now.
Well, let me explain to everybody what she's talking about. So high-intensity drug trafficking, something, whatever the world's government thing is where the federal government actually gives money to local jurisdictions to go out and fight drugs. Now, when that was first offered to Arizona, there was only a few, for whatever reason, wasn't me there at the time, only a few of the counties petitioned for it, and a lot of the counties got it. As a matter of fact, one of our neighboring counties, obviously Phoenix has got it, any of the ones that's got big jurisdictions, but Navajo County, they're also a HIDA county, okay? And so they actually get a constant stream of money to come in to their agency and fund these types of events. Now, for whatever reason, we did not have it then. Once that era was, take a look at it and said, hey, we're missing out on kind of a neat deal here, they had closed the window on being able to become a HIDA representative.
Yeah, because when I talked to her, she said.
Recently, I'm talking about back when.
I know, yeah, she's like.
I know you've talked to me recently, and we are in talks. We continue to be in talks with HIDA, but the problem with it is their funding dwindles too, and it's hard to bring somebody on when you're just trying to support what you've already got. And we may get lucky. We are going to take another run at HIDA, but we have not recently. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, I keep getting on that chief too.
Okay.
Okay.
Maybe we can do it
My last-
together.
Yeah, my last one, I'm sorry, because you know that is my passion with the drugs.
Yeah, I think I know.
Okay, so my last one, here you go, because I heard you mention it. So, being an elected official, vice mayor, okay, I have a tough time with elected officials, including myself, okay, been there, done that, who stay with the status quo mindset.
Okay.
Okay, every organization can always improve, and we know they can always improve.
Of course they
So,
can.
I know I heard you just say you want to stay for the last 8 years, and I have a hard time with that, because I get that your change, and 8 years is good, but my whole thing is I want to ask you, because again,
Okay.
what 3 new issues will you be working on this term, if you do get elected, to improve the sheriff's department, because we always can improve. Thank you.
Of course we can. No, I wouldn't argue with that. What I meant to say, maybe it was misunderstood, is that I'm not making you any new promises. I'm continuing with the promises that I made to you 8 years ago. And those promises is to continue to try to improve the agency. Like I said, sometimes it takes money. So let me give you an example of a few things that we've done and that we're still working on. I don't know if you know that our main, obviously, office is in Globe. That's where the county seat is at. The jail that we run down there was built in the 1970s. And when it was built from plans that were already out of date. So it wasn't even modern for the time. It certainly isn't modern now. Now, when we try to do modern, to put kind of, some modern technology or something into that, there's absolutely no infrastructure in it whatsoever to accommodate that. So it takes time to build the infrastructure back into the building that gives us the opportunity to have electronic monitoring of of prisoners, for instance. That's one of our goals for this next term. Is we want to be able to make sure that at all times we're keeping an eye on them. One of the problems, of course, when you run a jail, is that I don't know if you know this or not, but two of the most prolific causes of deaths in jails, two of the highest reasons of those was, number one, suicides. There's a lot of suicides in jail. And number two, poor health. So they have whatever their problem is on the outside catches up to them while they're in jail. We've had deaths from both of those. Okay, so when something like that happens, of course, you're under the microscope, right? Right, wrong, or indifferent, something happened. We don't have control over life or death, obviously. So there's a lot of modern technology that can help with that. Now, some of the things we've implemented, continue to implement, continue to work on, is the mental health issue. Mental health in jails for too long has been ignored. It has been pushed under the table. We now, the county, we talked the county into contracting with a mental health provider that we actually have room for them in the jail, so they actually interview our folks when they're coming in, making sure that they're not in a state of mind where they're going to do something bad while they're there, hopefully. And I don't know if you know this part either, but this is something that you probably should know too. Do you know that we're responsible as the citizens for all of the health care across the board when somebody's in jail? Did you know that if they have insurance, if they're covered by the state or anything like that, did you know that that's suspended when they get arrested? And then it goes on your tax dollars to provide medical care for that person while they're incarcerated. Okay? So all of that stuff kind of comes together to affect this situation. That's something that we want to continue to make progress on. You know that I've talked a little bit about it, and I don't. I think we've done really good with technology with what we can because of the cost of it in a lot of cases. But one of the next things that we want to do is have automatic reporting of our accident scenes. So when you get into a wreck, fender bender, or whatever, or worse, out in the county someplace, we want the officer to be able to feed that information into the state system to where that is reported right away so you can get that information. You know, your insurance company is usually bothering us like the next day for that information on that wreck. Sometimes it takes some time to get that all filtered through and get it approved and get it all the way through the system. We want to shorten that up. And again, we have to have the technology in the vehicles, we have to have the technology that's available to the officers to be able to do that, to be able to provide that service. But that's something else that we're working on. A lot of these things that we're ambitious about, that we want to continue on going with, obviously takes a lot of time. And I can't. I would like to be able to say to you, the minute after I get reelected, I'll have all these services for you, and everything will just be wonderful. It doesn't work that way, and it takes time to put these things together. There's never a budget. We talked a little bit about that earlier. For anything you want to do, if you want to spend money, because remember I told you it has to be a balanced budget, you have to take that from something else, and you have to move it over to what you want to do with it. It's a slow process. It's not something you can do overnight. And that's the truth, no matter what anybody promises.
Okay, other questions?
Thanks.
I have a couple.
Thanks, Janelle.
Thanks, Janelle. Yeah. Anybody else? Okay, so here's Gordon. He has a question.
All right. Like I said, nothing is off the table.
Well, we'll see. If somebody chooses to disobey a governor's executive order, which statute are they breaking?
Well, supposedly the governor's staff tells us it's that one that is in the emergency declaration, right? Okay, you know it? I thought you knew the answer, see if I knew it. But I'll tell you, okay, so the governor has war powers, right? So if there is a threat to the state of Arizona, the governor supposedly has broad powers to be able to do stuff to his citizens to keep them safe, supposedly, from that war. Did you know that that's where the statute that they're holding themselves to to tell law enforcement that you can go out and enforce the mask thing, you can go out and close businesses, you can go out and do this because there's a statute in there that says that, and it just almost looks like it's an afterthought. That's the way it looks like to me, but it's in that same statute as far as emergency war powers. It says if there's a national medical emergency, that he has those same powers. If they're not defined. There's no law in this state about wearing masks. There's no law in this state about, having your business set up to where it has to. This legislature hasn't passed anything like that. So again, kind of reinforces why it's kind of iffy if you ask me.
So the governor's declared war.
Well, it's using the same statutes is all I'm telling you.
I do have a comment
It has to
on
come with the safety of the citizens of the state, but.
You all remember when the House and the Senate were getting ready to sine die, which means close the year, that there were a whole lot of Republicans that wanted to have some loose ends of bills tied up that were really good bills that needed to get to the governor's desk, and they just needed their third vote or whatever. And then when we got, the COVID came, and the Democrats wanted to sine die and be done with it and not deal with those other issues. And the Republicans tried very hard when everybody went home to come back to complete the session. And one of the pieces of legislation they wanted to get through was that a governor could only do an order like this, an emergency order, up to a certain length of time, and then the legislature had to vote to extend it for how long, and then for how long. It couldn't just go on indefinitely. So that's one of the bills that's going to be put forth as soon as everybody starts up in January, and then with the new elected people. And it was very much fought to go back into session, and the Democrats kept voting no, 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 no. And there's only a very slim margin between Democrats and Republicans in the House and the Senate. And so if you get one Republican that decides not to vote, or one Republican that votes like Heather Carter, which was a rhino, a Democrat in rhino skin or whatever, you can't get back in and do it. So it's really important that we vote all Republicans. Now, I have a question for you, back on topic.
Thank you.
Okay. So there was a really nasty ad in the newspaper during the primary about the reason why you fired your chief deputy.
Yes.
Would you like to tell us the truth about that?
Well, the paper also posted the performance evaluations. Everybody remember it? The performance evaluation from that year, from earlier in that year, which said, hey, you're failing and you need to get your stuff together. Did you know that position actually pays more than my position does? Do you know that? I don't know if they put that in the paper or not. It's one of the top positions. It's my deputy, it's my chief. It's one of the top positions in the county. It's one of the top paid persons in the county. But I feel if you're one of the top paid people in the county that's getting one of the very few top salaries that are is only reserved for managers and things like that, you should be performing at 100%, right? 110%, even better than that. And you should be, if you're failing away in something and it's been brought to your attention, it would seem to me like that would be something that you would get on right away and fix it. And if you didn't know it was fixed, you'd ask how to fix it or something like that. I can get to that point. I can't let you pay a salary for somebody in that position that's not being effective and that's not running the office like you tell me how you want the office ran, and then I tell the staff. If they're not doing that, ain't a whole heck of a, I only have one choice. So that's my story on that.
Okay, good.
Like I said, nothing out of bounds, I don't care. You can
Okay, here's
ask
another
me
question
questions
coming
you
up
want.
over here.
What is your officer turnover rate?
Here we go.
Well, we don't measure it as that, as Janelle knows, and because we've had a lot of conversations on it. We just run a monthly tally on our vacancies. And so that's how come I knew that number off the top of my head. We don't actually quantify that. We lose and gain quite a bit. As I said, some folks will come here, unfortunately, on your dime, and this is what I fight all the time, try to deal with, is they will come because I don't know if you've ever heard what it's like to get a police work job in the Valley. You have just a handful of positions. There might be hundreds of people that show up to apply for those positions. So your chances of getting in an agency like that is pretty slim if you're just off the street. You're not coming from anything. In rural agencies, rural Arizona, and we all fight this out here outside of the big cities, there's a lot less applicants and a lot more need. So that's usually where some of our applicants come from. Now, we ask that they put in a couple of years, so you spend money on them, you got them trained up. Hopefully they're going to, if they decide to take that skill and use it someplace, they're using it someplace that benefits citizens of Arizona, at least we hope, because they're the ones that pay for it for the most part. But that's where we get a lot of our turnover from, is folks that will come to us to get the training, because once you're trained, that's the magic ticket, that's the golden ticket. You can take that in Arizona, not all states are like this, I don't know if you realize this or not. In Arizona, that certificate, that police certificate, is absolutely 100% portable. You can work anywhere in this state as a police officer with that ticket. Now sometimes in some other jurisdictions, it might be more regional, but you can work for any agency, for any police department that'll take you once you have that certificate in your hand in the state of Arizona. It's completely wide open.
Is the primary reason for their leaving salary?
Sometimes they, maybe they have personality conflicts with folks. We run into that a lot. Sometimes we have a lot of them that have spouse that don't like small town living and want to live in the big city or closer to the big city or something like that. We have the entire gamut of reasons for folks going and coming. It's like that with every small agency. It's not any different across the state. Pretty common. Yeah, go ahead.
Isn't it cheaper to retain than to replace?
Thank you for making the case that I make to the supervisors of this county every single time that we go. And I don't know if you all heard him. He said, isn't it cheaper to retain them than it is to keep swapping them out? I make this argument ad nauseum, folks. And as I told you from the beginning, I don't have anything to do with the purse strings. So I have to convince the people that do have the purse strings, this is a good idea. Most agencies went to what they call STEP program. So that means it's kind of like the military, where you have specific steps where, as long as you've been there and been, and in good standing, you get the next pay bump or something like that. We have offered them to do that. We have done everything we can think of to try to get at least that part, that one of the reasons that we lose people, fixed. But the problem with it is it's very, very difficult to get a small government to buy into something like that. Everybody's been in business. I know a lot of you have done this. What's the biggest part of your budget? Is it pencils? Is it paper? Is it even vehicles or gasoline? Is it any of that stuff?
Payroll.
Labor.
That's right. It's people. It's labor. And so that's the hardest argument to make when you're in government. The hardest argument to make is to say you want more people, or you want them paid better, or you want to try to figure out more ways to retain them and to keep them in your agency. Because we figure by the time you take somebody off the street and you get them, like I said before, you get them through all that stuff, a year and a half later, and they're ready to go to work for you. We figure you probably were paid for $150 grand at least. And you have not got 1 day of single work out of that person in that whole period of time. Not 1 day. So, you're absolutely right. Would you like to go with me to the next time we make that pitch to the county supervisors? I would love to have you there. Because I know, obviously you get it. And I'm sure all of you by now get that it's cheaper to keep them than it is to lose them.
Okay, we have one more question over here, and then we should tie it up.
Yeah, I know, I've been yakking for a long time. I go on all night.
I have a statement and a question.
Okay, Brad, go ahead, sir.
I'll do the question second, and it's about your opponent. My statement is, we talked about this prior to the meeting, is your support of your volunteer organizations. I just wanted to say that we feel appreciative, me, Frank, and Janelle for that matter, volunteer for your organization, and it's heartwarming to see you there almost every month, and then your wife also, Jessica, also.
She was actually part of the squad at one time.
Yeah.
No, she's part of the posse.
Yeah.
She had a posse number for a little while.
So I just want to say thank you for your support for your volunteer organizations. And I was trying to find out on the internet about your opponent, Democratic opponent, and he refused to answer my questions on the internet. So I asked my understanding is he was a small patrol sergeant in a small town in Arizona.
In Gila County, yeah.
Yeah, in Gila County. And my question to him was, does he have any large agency experience? And he never answered that question.
Well, I like to throw mud, but no, there's not. He's one of the smallest agencies in the county, is the one he's working for right now, Miami PD. And he did work for the sheriff's office at one time, and went out to the tribe after that. I don't really know much of his history other than that. But I do want to get back on the volunteer thing for a minute. I don't know if you understand this or not. A lot of the things that are performed at the sheriff's office, like if you read, because the paper around here loves tunnel room search and rescue, of course, and things that they do. So they're always, there's a reason for that, by the way. It's because somebody on the paper's family was rescued by the squad at one time. So they're always very, very appreciative and very, laying on of the thanks to the group, and I couldn't thank them more for that. But there's actually more volunteers for the sheriff's office than there is people that work there. That number's about 2 or 3 to 1, okay? Because the job is so big, and I thank the people in the legislature, and at the time this happened in the 70s, where they said, look, we've had a few searches, we've had a few big name searches that got out of control, and we found out that nobody was in charge. Well, so they looked around and said, sheriffs, you don't have enough jobs, I guess, but maybe we'll just need one more. So search and rescue is one we're going to give them. So that became that. We got put in the statute back in the 70s. But thankfully, the other thing that they did to help us out is say, you can use all of the inhabitants of your county to help you with that duty. And we darn sure do. And that happens to be also the way posses are formed for all kinds of disciplines, including the ones that are dressed like police officers or the folks that go out on a search and rescue. I can't, if it makes a difference to show up and support the volunteer organizations, then it's a small thing for me to be there, because what I get from that is so overwhelming and so known across this state at their proficiency and their professionalism and the things that they do compared to other places are pretty much put up as the standard for the state for our groups. And I couldn't be more proud of that. And it's all about the folks that are there, that volunteer their time. Remember, I don't know if you know this, volunteer organizations receive no money from us. No money from the county coffers at all, not a dime. They raise it all themselves, right? They go out, they get donations, they have fundraisers, they put their things together, they buy equipment with it, they buy vehicles, all kinds of these stuff that I could never do because of these dedicated individuals. I can't think of enough. Thanks for bringing it up. Anybody
Okay.
else? I know it's getting late. But
Well, we got Deborah too.
I do not want to take up any of Deborah's time.
I know, really. Well,
I'll
listen,
even
thank
hand
you.
the mic to her.
Thank you so much, Sheriff Shepherd. Yay! Come on up, Deborah. So Deborah Rose is a local realtor here in town, and she has been a huge supporter of Mayor Tom Morrissey and attending all of his Wednesday morning coffees that he was having. So I will have her tell you more about herself and why she would like to serve on the town council.
Thank you, Shirley. Good evening, everyone. I'm actually a small business owner. There's a lot of negative connotations that go with realtors, and I have to tend to agree that we deserve the kind of shoddy reputation that we get. I run my real estate office like a business. I have full-time staff. I understand small businesses. I understand what it takes to run one. And I would also respectfully agree to disagree that the main cost of running a business is all the infrastructure, the office, the advertising, the marketing, the internet, the cell phones, everything that goes with it. And then the employees are a very close second. So having been a small business owner my whole life, I was born in 1962 in Detroit, Michigan, actually Rochester, Michigan. I'm the oldest of 5 girls. I was raised by my father. My dad worked for Chrysler. My mother was the head mechanic for the corporate office of General Motors. So when the corporate guys had a breakdown in their vehicle, had a problem, they rolled in their car, and my mom would diagnose the problem and then direct it to where it had to be fixed. So I come from Detroit. I was born a Detroit Democrat. In Michigan, they almost disown you if you buy a foreign vehicle. So I drive a Dodge Ram truck, just saying, you'll never catch me in a foreign car, because pride was built into us growing up. I grew up in with the Motown, with cars, with this great culture of innovation and creativity, and back then there was a vibrancy in that area that is hard to compete. So I grew up with a very blue-collar work ethic, and I moved out west in 1982. I moved out alone. So I am an independent thinker. I am no longer a Democrat. I became a libertarian, and then I became some kind of green tea party. It's not green tea, but they had a green thing, a green group where you could vote green, okay? And then I came to my senses in 1997 and became a Republican. So there you have it. I'm going to say that I have palm cards in the back. I have 2 different palm cards. One kind of talks about my principles and what I believe in. And the second one is some of the things that I have done for the community. I don't believe in bragging about myself or what I do for people, but I guess I have to since I'm out in the public eye. I tend to be shy. I'm a researcher by nature. I do a lot of due diligence on everything because I want to protect people. My heart is to protect people. And one of the reasons I've been aligned with Mayor Tom Morrissey is because I feel, as an independent thinker, seeing what happened to him, seeing that he's a retired U.S. law marshal, came in and saw some things that were very shady and addressed them, and almost immediately there was a committee to recall him. Matter of fact, within 2 months, there was a group that were going to recall him. They were smart enough to wait 6 months because they knew if they waited 6 months, the town would have to pay that fee to recall him. And some of those organizers are current sitting council members. And when that didn't work, then the lawsuits started coming. So I have a big problem with that. I'm about integrity. I'm running because I'm kind of sick of, I've been here 19 years now. I was at the very beginning of all the birthing of the MHA, or when Kenny Evans came in with the MHA, Gary Cordell used to be my business partner. Gary Cordell is Kenny Evans' right-hand man, and he writes all the checks. And we shared an office. So, do I know a lot? Yes. Have I seen a lot? Yes. Okay, so my big thing in life is I love justice. I love police officers. I thank Adam Shepard for his crew. I believe in law and order. And when I see something that's not right, I have to do something about it. So I decided to run for town council because Janelle Sterner inspired me. Actually, I watched that woman sit on that heavily, what would you call it?
Slated one way.
It was very heavily slated one way. And she was always the one going, but wait, can we talk about this some more? But wait, she was asking the hard questions. And no one else wanted to talk about the hard questions. And I watched the votes, 6-1, 6-1, 6-1. And she had a lot of common sense. So I relate to that. She's my hero. And I too have a lot of common sense. So I want to take my small business savvy, my ability to make things work in very difficult environments, and this year's very difficult. I've been on the radio multiple times, and I say, you know, when things get tough, I don't get to raise taxes and get more money from my people. I have to take cuts. I have to make some difficult decisions. And I think that's what government doesn't do. I think instead of putting the brakes on, they hit the gas pedal and go, well, we need more money, so we're going to hit the people up for the money. And I really resented it when our former mayor, Craig Swartwood, ramrodded a tax raise through, and we didn't get to vote. So guess who was on the committee for the Prop 401 and 402? That would be me. So I will say that I love veterans too. I co-produced the Charlie Daniels Band concert. I executed the vision for Eric Santana. That was Eric Santana's dream. He didn't know how to quite put it together. I used to be in the music business. I used to take care of celebrities. And I know a lot about production and music and all that. So I happily stepped in and made that dream come true. Unfortunately, we raised a lot of money for our local veterans, and more than 700 local veterans saw that concert for free. So I am currently working, I'm the only female, and I'm the only non-veteran, helping the Honor Guard bring the Vietnam Memorial Wall, the Healing Wall, to Payson, Arizona in 2021. We'll be one of the only towns in America bringing that wall back into our community for 3 days. So that's going to be really exciting. So, what would make me the best town council candidate? I believe that character counts, integrity matters, productivity is really, really crucial, and getting the salaries, you talked about salaries, that is really important because I've seen a lot of people get paid a lot of money and they do nothing. So how do you fix that? You can't just say, well, I'm going to go in and I'm going to change this and change this and change that. But you can't do that. I'm one of 7 people, right? So how do you get change to stick? You can't just say, oh, you know, sir, you just change your ways and everything will be all right with your job. You actually have to write it into policy manuals. And I've looked at the policy manuals, the hiring manuals. They're very anemic. There's no teeth in them. There's no way to hold people accountable. And when you can't hold people accountable, you can't do anything with them. You can't fire them. You can't correct them. People take offense. And then all of a sudden you have all this infighting. And if you don't believe me, just look at some past administrations where if you really study it, like I did a bunch of research in the last 10 years, there are at least 5 very hard-working employees within the town of Payson that haven't gotten a raise in 11 years. What does that mean? If you watch what happens to the people that don't get a raise year after year after year after year, and you watch their track record, and these people, ironically, are the ones that are producing the most. They're doing the most work, and they're getting overlooked. Why do you think that happens in government? Yeah, it's a good old boy system. So I watched one employee in particular, because he's a very dear friend of mine. 11 years, no raise. He did the job of 3 men. And guess what he ends up doing? He leaves. Because the productive, small business-minded, hardworking people that really have integrity, that really care about their job and want to do a great job, leave. And his boss took all his raises. So his boss, I had a face-to-face meeting with, and I demanded that he explain to me why he thought he deserved not only $160,000 a year, but what is illegally called a stacked salary. He started here. Several years later, they moved him here. They kept paying him that salary, then they gave him a new salary, they added him up, so he has a double salary, and then he gets promoted to town manager, and bam, he gets another salary. So he's got 3 salaries stacked on top of each other. And you know what he had the audacity to say to me? Nothing. Nothing. And I said, you, sir, are the reason a lot of people in this town are very pissed off at, because you don't do anything. And you sit there and you act like you deserve it. No, you don't. So I'm kind of passionate when I get going. I'm sorry, I'll calm down. But anyways, I believe that I can confront problems and I can solve problems. As a small business owner, my whole life I've had to do that. So I don't expect someone else to pay me to be lazy, to pay me to be unproductive, to pay me to be frugal, unfrugal. I just believe in good old common sense, blue collar work ethic. And so I do have a website, it's called DeborahForPayson.com. I would love your vote. I know I'm running up against another Republican, Jolyn Shinstock. We have 2 debates coming up, and it's very important that you see the differences in us too. There's 2 things that really stand out to me, and I have met her face to face already. I have seen her at multiple events, and we have 2 debate nights coming up, so you're invited. And I just have a few flyers, but we're putting it on my website, DeborahForPayson.com. Wednesday, September 30th at Messengers at 6 p.m. to 7:30. And then October 13th, we'll be right back here from 6 to 7:30. So Jolyn Shinstock and I are running for town council, and I would love the opportunity of your vote, and I'm going to leave it open for questions right now, so you can ask me whatever you want.
Wednesday the 30th at Messengers?
Wednesday, September 30th at Messengers, 6 to 7:30 p.m. And Tuesday, October 13th, here, 6 to 7:30 p.m. Does anyone have any questions? Yes, sir.
Okay, wait. Sorry. Thanks, Frank.
What do you feel is the most important issue facing Payson today?
Power. God showed me that power is power in this world comes from knowledge, and then it comes from the control of power, and it comes from then wealth. And what I've seen by my research is we have had former administrations take from Payson what's rightfully Payson's. And the whole varsity high school thing, yeah, I was at the forefront of that, and I was the one challenging Craig Swartwood to his face about what he was doing. And he never had an answer for the money. And that whole idea kind of came out of nowhere, and I feel like they were shoving it down our throats. And it dawned on me, wait a minute, think about how a former mayor created 4 shell companies, was able to put 46 million total from fundraising, using ASU's name to come here, plus the sale of the hospital was a donation, put it into a private account that now he and Gary Cordell have total control over. It's a private entity. The MHA Foundation became a private entity. Did you know that? The goal of the varsity school was not the school, it was the land below it. And I'm the incoming vice president of the Board of Realtors, and I am well known for caring about the homeless, affordable homes, because I don't care about the money, I care about the people. I need the money, don't get me wrong, but I care about the people more. And I was in multiple meetings where time after time they sent, and I was the treasurer, by the way, sending all their people in. And I remember the day that they put it in the paper, pick one of these 3 designs for the varsity school. Which one do you like? And I'm like, wait a minute, you guys don't even have money. You don't even know how to explain how you're going to pay for it. This is what I said to Craig Swartwood. I said, do you vet people? And he goes, in your business, as a realtor, do you vet people? He goes, oh no. I said, you haven't vetted anyone in 40 years. No. Oh well, maybe 2. And I said, well, that's the problem. If you want to be a professional tour guide as a realtor, then that's between you and your family. But sir, you're talking about our money. And you will not put a noose around our neck to the tune of $40 to $50 million over my dead body. So in that meeting, they sent in 2 other guys, and they looked at me, they had their little 3 little things going, oh, which one do you guys want to pick? And I was sitting right there, and I was just glaring at the guy. And he looks at me and goes, what, Deborah? Think of all the concerts you could produce with 2 hockey rinks. And I said, okay, Mr. Genius, where are you going to put the 2 10-story parking garages to put all these people? Where on your little map there? Of course, they didn't have a parking garage anywhere near there. They don't want, it's a smoke and mirrors. Here's the dream, and underneath they're taking all of our land. Think about it. Think about it. I'm mad. ASU and the Board of Regents deeply cares about people using their name to raise millions of dollars when ASU all along was saying, we're not coming. We're not coming. There is a, unfortunately for me as a realtor, I never promoted ASU coming. I never did, but a lot of agents did. There's a class action lawsuit forming against us, and anyone who promoted ASU coming to town and businesses moving here because ASU is coming to town. So, the number 1 problem, I said all that to say, this is a public servant job. I'm here to serve you. I'm not here to serve my pocketbook. And how an organization that was a non-for-profit organization is now sitting on $46 million, doling out a little money here or there. And by the way, for those of you that don't know it, those people are going into small businesses, media, and saying, by the way, you do what we tell you to do, or we're pulling all of our advertising and funding. What do you call that? Yeah, I grew up in Detroit. I grew up around mafia. I know what that is, okay? That is not okay. It's not okay with me. So the main reason I'm running is because I want to put a stop to it. We are not supposed to be stealing the resources, natural or otherwise, from the good people of a town. We're supposed to be protecting it. I promise you, The end goal is to get as much land, as much water. Do they have to pay taxes on that land over there? Because they created, look at the code of ethics. That's why I want to revise the manual first. That would be my main job, revise the policy manual. I'm a grant writer by trade, I'm a technical writer. I'm very driven by justice. Put in a code of ethics that's enforceable. If you are mayor, you can't go in and create 4 shell companies and do deals and have great ideas, not only vote on them, but sign them. In a court of law, you'd have to recuse yourself. That's illegal. So I am the candidate. Yes, I am very passionate. I'm very upset about it because I feel that, we focus on the wrong thing. We focus on the dream. And while we're up here, it's like they're pulling I'm sorry, but it's true. And I will testify in court that it's true. I tell people all the time, you want to sue me? Bring it on. Because you, sir, are the one that's going to end up in big trouble. So, ending corruption and cronyism and nepotism in our little government, yes, it does exist, and we need to wake up and we need to fight back and fight for our little town. That's number 1.
Okay, Deborah, if you,
All right, any other questions?
Any other questions? Okay, I'm just going to make a couple of announcements. You already heard one. We're having Deborah and Jolynn, and what I want you to do is come up with a 3x5 card, or I'll bring some next week. We want to come up with 8 questions that we are going to ask Deborah and Janelle at this forum, and they'll each get a chance to...
Jolynn.
Okay, I'm tired.